It's my favorite time of year. The weather is getting cool. The leaves are falling from the trees. If you haven't heard me say it before, fall is my ultimate time of year because it's cool enough to layer, but it's warm enough to still enjoy the outside without freezing. And also during this time of year, there's one iconic flavor that reigns supreme. You all know what it is. It's pumpkin, or particularly pumpkin spice. And I am no different because today we are going to make a pumpkin spice cheesecake. Whew, that sounds good just coming out of my mouth. Coming up next on The Sweet Spot. The first thing we need to do is make our graham cracker pecan crust. I love this crust because it's not just your traditional graham cracker crust. We add those pecans, which gives you that extra flavor and texture, and even makes this pumpkin spice cheesecake even feel more like fall and a warm hug. So let's get started. I have my graham crackers, my pecans, my melted butter, sugar, and we're just gonna add a pinch of salt. The first thing we need to do is have our food processor handy because we need to turn these graham crackers and pecans into crumbles. That's the first step. So I'm just gonna take my top off of my food processor here, and I'm gonna put all of my graham crackers into the food processor. And you can pulse them together. I like to create crumbs with my graham crackers first before adding my pecans because I do like my pecans to stay a little bit whole. I'm gonna break up some of those graham crackers so it's not so jammed in there. I like my pecans to stay a little bit whole. If I put them in with the graham crackers, I'll end up with pecan crumbles, which I do want a few pieces because I want that pecan flavor to really shine through. So all of my graham crackers are in there. Remember, when using your food processor, please secure your top to the base, and we're just gonna pulse until we get crumbles. And there we go, it happens very fast. It's not a long process. So once again, I'm gonna take my top off of my food processor, and then I'm gonna add in all of those pecans. And since I'm going ahead and pulse my pecans, I'm actually gonna add in my sugar as well. The last thing we're gonna add is our butter and a pinch of salt. So put my top back on my food processor, and once again, pulse until my pecans are small enough and fine enough to really get pressed down into my pan. All right, so my pecans are fine enough to really get pressed down. What I'm going to do is open my top here and add a little bit of the butter at a time. So I'm gonna pour in a little bit of that melted butter, about half, and pulse, and my crumbs will start to come together. I'm gonna add the remaining butter, and at the same time, do a little pinch of salt. And we're gonna pulse that until it comes together and then start filling our springform pan. We're going to bake this cheesecake in a water bath. So we need to prep our springform pan first. So as you can see here, I have that's very noisy, but I have 2 pieces of aluminum foil, and I'm kind of doing a cross. So I have one going horizontal, and I'm gonna do one going vertical. And I'm gonna put my pan directly in the center because you want the foil to come up halfway up your pan so the water doesn't penetrate in when you put it in that bath. So I just take the sides and just gently fold them up. And I'm not gonna fold them in, I'm gonna fold them down because I don't want the foil inside of my pan, but I do want it high enough to where I feel like I have a watertight seal. So I'm gonna fold this down just like that. And then press it really firm and make sure I have a nice bond. As you can see, my pan is prepped and ready to go. It's time to put those delicious, and fragrant graham cracker and pecan crumbs directly into that springform pan. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take my blade out here, set that aside, and then taking a spatula, I'm just gonna pour all of that graham cracker crust into my pan. Try to get it all in the pan and not on the countertop. Now that I have my crust into the pan, it's time to start pressing it down. You want to press an even layer down into the bottom of your pan, and you want to use the side of your measuring cup to press that crust up the sides of the pan. My crust is all done. It's pressed into the pan. It looks and smells amazing. We're gonna pre-bake this for 8 minutes in a 350-degree oven. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven, kind of reset my station for the cheesecake filling, and then we're about to get busy. All right, so my crust is out of the oven and it smells, oh my God, I keep saying it smells amazing, but after those 8 minutes in the oven, the pecans, the graham crackers, it just smells like a warm cinnamon roll coming out of the oven. Smells so good. So it's time to make our filling, but before we make our filling, you'll notice, if you can see, I have a pot behind me on the stove. So what you want to do, you want to start boiling some water for your water bath, because you want the water in the water bath when you put this cheesecake in the oven to be boiling, so that your cheesecake cooks evenly. If you have cold water in a pan, it's gonna slow down the bake time and could affect the cheesecake. So put a pot of water, enough to fill that baking pan halfway, or that roasting pan halfway. So I have water boiling on the stove, but the important thing is we're gonna start making our cream cheese, our cheesecake filling, but we're starting with cream cheese. So I'm gonna take all of that cream cheese and put into my mixer. This takes a lot of cream cheese, this recipe. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put all of that into my mixer. All right, so we're also gonna add into this our sugar. So we have our brown sugar and our granulated sugar. And we're gonna mix this on high. We want this to become really creamy and smooth, so you're gonna do it a couple of minutes. So you really wanna make sure everything's incorporated, blend it out and smooth, so that we get a nice blend of flavors throughout our cheesecake. All right, so my sugar and cream cheese are all combined. I will tell you, in between, stop your mixer, take a rubber spatula, get at the bottom of that bowl, because ingredients like to hide under here, especially brown sugar. They go to the bottom. So you wanna whip that up to make sure it's all being combined and blended. Then after your last mix, you wanna scrape down the sides of your bowl once again, and we're gonna start adding our eggs. And you're gonna add them in one at a time. Beat on medium to medium low. You don't want it too fast, and you wanna make sure each one is incorporated after each mix. So I just added in my last egg. I'm gonna scrape down the sides of my bowl. This is when you'll start to see that smooth texture shift from that cream cheese and sugar to now adding those eggs. You start to see it get nice and creamy and fluffy, almost similar to like a nice thick cake batter. All right, so we're gonna add in some of the magic ingredients. Of course, it's a pumpkin spice cheesecake, so we can't have pumpkin spice without the pumpkin. So let's get that pumpkin in there. Let me caution you, when you're buying your pumpkin puree, look for pure pumpkin, not pumpkin pie mix, because that has additional spices and things in there, and we're gonna add our own spices. We just want the pure pumpkin puree. It's easy to find right there in the baking aisle. So our pumpkin's in there, so we're also gonna add our sour cream. Get all of our sour cream in there. And our vanilla. So these 3 ingredients are gonna be added, and then we're going to mix that on about medium-high until that's nice and smooth. So now that we have our pumpkin puree, our vanilla, our sour cream, all in our batter, it's time to start adding our spices and our dry ingredients. So the first thing we're gonna add is our flour. I'm going to do a pinch of salt. And the magic happens with the spices, because of course it's a pumpkin spice cheesecake. So I'm gonna add in all of that cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and I do allspice. I find allspice just brings it together. Some people do cloves. I prefer allspice. And we're gonna blend that or mix it on medium until it's nice and smooth and combined, and then we're gonna start filling our pan. Cheesecake filling is done. I actually just took my spatula and kind of folded to make sure all of the ingredients were mixed together. I have my crust here that's cooled down, and I'm just gonna pour all of that cheesecake filling directly into that crust. Oh, look how good that looks. Oh, it's just so smooth, so creamy. And I'm gonna take my spatula and just kind of smooth it out to the top is nice and even. It should come over the sides of that graham cracker crust you have in there. Oh my God, this looks amazing already. I can't wait until it's completely baked. We get every last bit because that filling is so good. All right, and smooth that out. Now it's time to get our spring form pan into our roasting pan with the hot boiling water. You want to be careful. That water is boiling hot. You don't want to burn yourself. So I'll show you what I do. First step is to get the cheesecake in the center of the roasting pan. I know myself, if I had to pour that hot water into this pan, it would go everywhere, including into the cheesecake. So I just take a measuring cup or something that I can pour and just pour that hot water into my roasting pan until I get it halfway up the sides. I find this is easy. You're not forcing water into your cheesecake. You're not forcing water, in the inside of the foil you put around the cheesecake. It's a nice controlled environment dealing with something that could potentially burn your hands or anywhere in your body that it goes. So just pouring the boiling water until I get halfway up my roasting pan, and then we're gonna put this into our oven, and I have a few more instructions to tell you once we put this in the oven. So now that all of my boiling water is in my roasting pan, I have to carefully get this roasting pan into the oven. Now, you're going to bake your cheesecake for 60 to 75 minutes. I know that's a long span of time. It depends on how fast your oven cooks and how fast your cheesecake cooks. So, set your timer for 60 or where you think your oven's gonna bake it, because once it starts to get firmer on the edges, it can still be a little jiggly in the center because we are gonna let it sit in the oven for an additional hour. So my cheesecake rested in the oven for an additional hour, letting the heat escape slowly with that wooden spoon. I've removed the roasting pan from the oven. I'm now going to remove the cheesecake from the water bath. Be careful, it can still be a little warm. And then I'm just gonna place this on a cooling rack and let it come to room temperature. Probably another hour or so. Once it comes to room temperature, I'm then gonna put it in a refrigerator for 12 to 24 hours. I just do it quickly overnight. I always make this cake a day in advance. Okay, so it's day 2. My cheesecake sat in the refrigerator overnight so it can set up and really come together. It's time to remove the spring form pan, or the surroundings, if you will. So I'm just gonna take my clip off here. Also note, if you see a little sticking at the top, sometimes that happens, just run a butter knife around the top, just gently, just so when you remove this side of the spring pan, it doesn't pull apart your cheesecake. So let's see what we have here. We're gonna remove that top. OMG, that looks so delicious. And it's set up great. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna transfer it on to a platter or whatever you wanna serve it from. And then I'm gonna show you how to make whipped cream and caramel sauce. Mine has a little kick to it. It's optional, but you'll see that when we start making the sauce. So let me get this on the platter and move to our next steps. Let's make the toppings for our cheesecake. So I mentioned a caramel sauce. It's actually a caramel praline version, almost my own recipe of a praline sauce with that caramel flavor. We're also gonna make whipped cream a little bit later, but I wanna make this first because I wanna give all my attention to that sauce because I don't want anything to burn, especially when you're dealing with making sauces from sugars on high heat, they can burn very easily. So let's get started. I have my medium saucepan here, and what we're gonna add to that saucepan is my sugar. So I have my brown sugar, my granulated sugar, and I have my cream here. So we're gonna add all of that into the bowl right away. Then we're gonna put it on medium heat and start cooking it. And as it thickens, we're gonna whisk, but I'm gonna show you that a little bit on the stove. With your cream and sugar over medium heat, whisk until all ingredients are fully combined. You wanna let those sugars fully dissolve into the cream, and you want it to come to a boil. You'll see the mixture start to bubble. Once it starts to bubble and thicken up, you want to stir consistently until you get a nice thick consistency. Then you want to add in your butter. Whisk until your butter has completely incorporated. I've removed the caramel praline sauce from the stove. We're going to add our last few ingredients. One is our vanilla. And my special ingredient, a little bit of brandy. You don't have to add the brandy. That's completely optional. So just keep stirring. My praline sauce is a little bit loose. I don't want it too thick because I do want it to coat and run down the sides of my slice of cheesecake. But as it cools, it does thicken up. So if it looks a little loose, it's gonna get much thicker than that as it cools down. So I'm gonna stir this a little bit more, and then we're gonna let this cool down as we start making our whipped cream. Our last topping to make is our whipped cream. Now, whipped cream is actually very simple to make. I know if you're out there and you're like, I can never make whipped cream. I used to think the same thing. I thought it was difficult. I thought it was a long process. I was like, how do they get cream that looks so fluffy? And you always see it come out in those like automatic dispensers, but it's very simple to make. It's a great addition to any dessert, and it's gonna be a great addition to our pumpkin cheesecake. So what we're gonna start with, and let me give you a tip. What I've learned over time is that if you put your mixing bowl or whatever bowl you're whipping the whipped cream in, I normally recommend a metal bowl because it holds the cold. I put it in the freezer. So as I was making the caramel sauce, the praline caramel sauce, I had my bowl for my mixer in the freezer because I want that cream to stay really cold as I whip it into the whipped cream. Speaking of cream, we're gonna add our cream to the mixer. And we're gonna add our confectioner sugar and our vanilla. So I add all ingredients at once. Like I said, it's very simple. And then I'm gonna whip this on high until I get stiff peaks. You don't wanna over whip cream because then it'll become a really clunky. So you wanna watch it. You want a nice, smooth whipped cream. So it's that time to slice into our pumpkin cheesecake. So let's get a nice slice. Oh my God, it cuts like butter. Oh, that cut was so smooth. All right, get a nice slice here. Oh, can't not wait. Look at that. Oh my God, looks so good. So we're gonna get it on our plate here. All right, so first we're gonna take that praline sauce. So let me just mix it up a little bit. And we're just gonna pour that right, look at that sauce going right over the top of that cheesecake. And I want it to slide down the sides a little bit. So we are just gonna, look at that. Sauce looks so good, so good. So now that we have our sauce, we're gonna top it, because remember it's a caramel praline sauce. We're just gonna top it with a few pecans. Let's put those right on top. Then we're gonna take our whipped topping that I put into a piping bag and put a nice dollop of whipped cream over the top. Oh, look at that. Last but not least, a little bit of cinnamon. All right, and there you have it. Pumpkin cheesecake, pumpkin spice cheesecake that is. I cannot wait to take a bite of this cheesecake. But first, I wanna thank you once again for coming to my channel, checking out one of my recipes. I have so much fun bringing these to you. I had so much fun making this one as well. It's my favorite time of year. It's that time where you're sharing with family. This is a great recipe to make for family and friends or one of those fall or holiday celebrations. Come back and see me. I have more content coming your way. Subscribe, hit like, come back right here on The Sweet Side.